Hello, this is Math 0018, Section 4.7. This is it, the last section of the class, other than your practice test. Woohoo! I'm so excited. I'm sure you are too. So this last section is an equation review. So we're going to go back over the equations that we learned to solve back in Chapter 2, just to kind of give you a good review of equations so that when you move on to your next class, the solving of equations is still fresh in your mind. So we're going to look at solving equations in the form x plus a equals b, ax equals b, and then ax plus b equals c, and ax plus b equals cx plus d. Yeah, alphabet soup, I know. So basically from the one-step equations all the way up to the equations where you have to move variables and constants from one side of the equation to the other. So let's get started. So here is your 4 steps of basic equation solving steps. The first thing you want to do is, if it's possible, combine like terms on each side of your equation. And then you're going to use the addition property of equality to get all of your variable terms, very important, on one side, and the constant terms, those are your numbers, on the other side. So you want to keep that balance going so that you have the equation stays equal on both sides and keep it balanced. And then in your last step, you're going to divide by the coefficient, or in the case of having a fraction, you're going to use the reciprocal to get the coefficient, to eliminate the coefficient of the variable term. And then you can check your solution. Alright, so our first equation, x minus 5 equals 3. So there's your x. What's on the same side with the x is negative 5. So I need to add 5 to both sides. So the x comes down, the 5's cancel, and it equals 8. Okay? Now you can check these. I'm not gonna, just to save some time, but you can always plug it back in for x and make sure that your answer is correct. Number 2. Y plus 6 equals negative 6. So look where the y is. We have a positive 6 on the same side. So I'm going to subtract 6, do the opposite operation, always. And so y comes down. Take a second. Yep, the 6's cancel. Now over here, be careful. These are both negative. Remember your rule. The signs are the same. You add and keep the sign. So that's going to be negative 12. Okay? Number 3, negative 10 equals n plus 2. So here the variable's on the right side of the equal sign. So you look to see what's on the same side with our n. It's a positive 2. So we're going to use a negative 2 to get rid of that. Okay. Same thing again, just like on number 2. Negative 10 and negative 2. We add and keep the sign. That's negative 12. The n comes down, and then double check, make sure the 2's cancel. Okay, number 4. 8 plus x equals 10. So we're trying to get the x by itself. You need to get rid of that 8. It's a positive 8, so I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So the 8's cancel. X comes down. And on the other side, 10 minus 8 is just 2. Now, number 5 gets into a different operation here. Here it's 4 times x equals 12. So to get rid of that 4, it's multiplication, so I need to divide. Always do the opposite operation when you're solving equations. So divide by 4 on both sides. The 4's cancel, and x comes down, and then 12 divided by 4 is 3. Okay? Number 6, same idea, 7x equals 35. So 7 times x, I need to divide by 7 on both sides. The 7's cancel, and x comes down, and 35 divided by 7 is 5. Alright, number 7. Again, we still have multiplication here. 6 times x equals negative 48. So I'm going to divide by 6 on both sides. The 6's cancel, so x comes down, and negative 48 divided by 6 is negative 8. And on number 8, we have 4x equals 12. So once again, 4 times x, I need to get rid of the 4. So I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides. So just remember, always do the opposite operation. The 4's cancel, and x equals 3. Now, number 9 is kind of tricky. You've got a negative x there, and some people are like, well, there's nothing to do. Yes, there is. You can't have a negative on your x. So remember that coefficient's a 1. It's kind of messy, but we need to get rid of negative 1. So we do the same steps. We're going to divide by negative 1 on both sides. So those cancel, and we get x. And 14 divided by negative 1 gives me negative 14. Okay, now these, getting into fractions. You got to go back and remember the stuff we did in chapter 2. Number 10 is set up in that shortcut format. I can't talk. Shortcut format. You've got a variable on top, x, over 8 equals negative 3. So to get x here, all we have to do is multiply those two numbers. So x equals 8 times negative 3 would be negative 24. Now, number 11, we're trying to get rid of a fraction there. So whenever you have a fraction right beside the variable, you want to use the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by negative 5/3 on the left side and have negative 3/5 x, and then negative 5/3 on the other side times, and I'm going to put negative 9 over 1. Okay? So on the left, everything cancels out to just ones everywhere, and all we're left with is positive x, which is what we want. Okay? On the right, a negative times a negative is going to give me a positive, and I can cancel 3 and 9. They have a common factor of 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. So if you still want to put the negative there, you can. So negative 5 times negative 3, we already said it was going to be a positive, which is what we get, positive 15. All right, let's see what's next. Now, number 12 and 13, we're getting into two-step problems here. So look at 12. 5x minus 9 equals 21. The first thing we need to do is get rid of that negative 9 so we can keep the 5x by itself. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. So just remember, anytime you need to move a term from one side of an equation to another, you're always using addition or subtraction. If you're just getting rid of a coefficient and leaving the x, that's when you multiply or divide. So the 9's cancel, and 21 plus 9 is 30. And now we need to get rid of the 5. Since that's multiplication, you divide by 5. So x equals 6. Okay? Now, number 13, we have 8 minus 3x equals negative 9. So, look at where your 3x is. I need to get rid of that 8. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So the 8's cancel. Negative, be careful about that sign, negative 3x comes down, and that equals negative 17. This is not going to be a pretty answer. So, now we need to get rid of negative 3. I'm going to divide by negative 3 on both sides so that negative 3's cancel. Now over here, be careful. Even though I can't do anything with 17 over 3, you could change it to a mixed number, but you want to leave it as an improper fraction. So you can't reduce that, but you must simplify the signs. Two negatives on a fraction, you must enter it and give your answer as a positive 17 over 3. Okay, so here's a couple more. So we have 14 and 15. On 14, I'm having trouble with my headphones, sorry. Hopefully you can hear me. Okay. All right, 14 and 15. Let's see, we've got variables on both sides on 14. Negative 8x minus 2 equals 4 minus 5x. So I want to first of all get my 5x over to the left. So I'm going to add 5x to both sides. So negative 8x plus 5x is negative 3x minus 2, that comes down, equals 4. And the 5x's cancel. Now it's back to what we just did on the previous slide. So don't worry about the 3x. Now you move your constants. So I'm going to add 2, get rid of that negative 2 by adding 2. So negative 3x comes down, the 2's cancel, and it equals 6. And then your last step, divide by negative 3 on both sides. So the negative 3's cancel, and x equals negative 2. So that came out pretty nice. Let's look at number 15. We have 8x plus 5 equals 4x plus 13. So the first thing I want to do is get my variables together. I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. So that's going to give me 4x plus 5, and then the 4x's cancel, equals 13. So because I subtracted 8x minus 4x. So I've got the variables together on one side. Now I need to get rid of the constant. So I'm going to get rid of that 5 by subtracting 5. So 4x comes down, the 5's are gone, and 13 minus 5 would be 8. And now your last step, divide by 4 on both sides. The 4's cancel, so x equals 2. Okay, so now there are some you-try problems. So pause your video. There's quite a few of those. So pause your video, try these, and then you can check your answers. All right, number 1. All of these say solve. So we want to get the y by itself. Y minus 11 equals 33. So I need to add 11 to both sides. So y comes down, and it equals 44. All right, number 2. Negative 2 equals negative 21 plus z. So here's your variable, the z. I want to get rid of negative 21. So I have to add 21. Always do the opposite operation. Okay. Negative 2 plus 21, you have to subtract there and keep the bigger sign. So that's going to be 19. The 21's do cancel, and the z comes down. All right, number 3. Negative 6x equals negative 36. So this is now multiplication. So I need to divide by negative 6 on both sides so that those negative 6's cancel, and I get x. And on the other side, a negative divided by a negative is going to give me a positive, and 36 divided by 6 would be positive 6. Number 4. This is where I had to get my calculator out. So let's see. This is in shortcut format. We have x over 2.55 equals negative 7.8. So I can just multiply those two numbers together. 2.55 times 7.8. Now notice I didn't say a negative because I know a positive times a negative is a negative. So I just let the calculator do the numbers and I figure out the signs. So it's going to be negative 19.89. Okay. So number 5, we have a fraction here that we need to get rid of, the negative 7/9. When it's right beside the variable like that, you want to use the reciprocal. So negative 9 over 7, and then times negative 7/9 x. And on the other side, negative 9 over 7 again, and put negative 14 over 1. Okay, so on the left, all the 7's cancel, the 9's cancel, everything cancels all out to positive x. That's the idea. And on the right hand side, a negative times a negative is a positive. And if you look, 7 and 14, you can cancel that by 7. 7 will go into 7 once, and 7 goes into 14 2 times. So negative 9 times negative 2 would be positive 18. And the ones on the bottom you can just ignore. All right, number 6. 3x minus 7 equals negative 13. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get rid of that negative 7. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. So 3x comes down, equals, the 7's are gone, so it equals negative 6 because you have to subtract there. And now to get rid of the 3, since that's multiplication, I need to divide. So divide by 3. and x, the 3's cancel, x equals negative 2. Number 7, 1 equals negative 15x plus 4. So the first thing we need to do, get rid of that 4 because you want to keep the negative 15x there by itself for now. So we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. 1 and negative 4 gives me negative 3 equals negative 15x. The 4's have canceled. Now be careful. You still need to get rid of the negative 15. That's what your coefficient is. So divide by negative 15 on both sides. The 15's cancel, but over here the 3 is on top and it's smaller than the 15, so that's going to be a fraction. First of all, it's going to be a positive because you have two negatives, and if you reduce the top and the bottom by 3, you're going to get 1/5, and it would be positive. Okay, number 8. 2x plus 3 equals 5x minus 9. So the variables are on both sides of the equal sign. That's what you need to see first. So I want to get my variables over to the left, and so I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. Put it up underneath its like term. So 2x and negative 5x is negative 3x plus 3, that comes down, equals, the 5x's are gone, so it equals negative 9. Now, the next step is move the constant, the 3, to the right. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides because you want to get negative 3x by itself, okay, which that comes down. The 3's cancel. Now be careful. Two negatives, remember you add and keep the sign. So that's going to be negative 12 when we add negative 9 and negative 3. And then the last step, divide by negative 3 on both sides. So the negative 3's cancel, and x equals positive 4. Alright, number 9, we have 6x minus 7 equals 4x plus 3. So our first step, get the variables to the left. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. Excuse me. So 6x minus 4x would be 2x minus 7. The 4's are gone, 4x's are gone, equals 3. And now don't mess with the 2x. You want to get the 7 on the other side. So I have to add 7 to both sides. So 2x comes down, the 7's are gone, and 3 plus 7 would be 10. And your last step now, divide by 2 on both sides. So the 2's cancel, and x equals 5. I think that's it, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Yes, that is it. That is the end of Math 18, except for your practice test. So that's the last section, 4.7.